everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. After I put out my last video called One Exercise, All the Chords, I got some comments, and I figured I probably would, about how I didn't include every kind of chord. It's true. It would have been really hard to include every single kind of chord in one exercise, but the last video did include major chords and minor chords and half diminished chords and dominant chords, and I thought that was a really good start. There are two other chords that are very common, less common, but still common, and worth the time to really get to know them, and those are the augmented and diminished chords. They sound like this. An augmented chord sounds like this. It's two major thirds stacked on top of each other. And a diminished chord sounds like this. It's two minor thirds stacked on top of each other. And even more to the point of what we'll talk about today, a diminished seventh chord, or a fully diminished seventh chord, is three minor thirds stacked on top of each other. You can hear these kind of chords all throughout music. In my video called The Forgotten Chord Progression, I talk about the progression that goes down like this. And then I used a few songs to illustrate my point, but one of them was, I can't fight this feeling deep inside of me. Right, you know that one? It has this descending chord progression that I talk about in my video, The Forgotten Chord Progression. But it also has this section where it builds tension, and it uses an augmented chord. Da 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 da. Remember that section where it goes from a major triad to an augmented triad to a six chord, a major six chord. You could also call it the minor six chord in first inversion. I wanted to make another exercise for you to get these kinds of chords in your fingers so that when you see them on a lead sheet, you know different options that you have available to you to make them sound good on the piano. So that when you see a diminished chord, you don't always think to yourself, all right, I have to play it in this order. C sharp, then E, then G, then B flat. You get some options. You learn to spread it out. Maybe C sharp and G and B flat and E. That's a much more pleasing sound than having it all stacked right on top of each other like that. In the exercise that I've written for you, and I played it for you a little bit ago, it's kind of hymn-like. And there's a worksheet that goes along with this video. You can get it if you click on the card above my head. It's $5 at my website, and I sure appreciate everybody who ever supports me by either watching my channel or purchasing PDFs on my website. Especially during the coronavirus time, it's really helpful to me. When I was messing around with ideas to come up with an exercise for you, this is the one that sounded strongest to me. I think you can take your time, spend some time with every chord, get really comfortable with the way they sound, feel what kind of emotions are brought up as you play them. It'll be different for everybody, but I'd like you to explore it, and I think this is a fun way to do it, kind of like a hymn. Diminished and augmented chords are often thought of as passing chords that take you from one place to the next. Jacob Collier has a great way of explaining diminished chords.
Here's the thing. Every diminished chord is a four-way crossroads. Take G, ooh, for example. If you move the B flat to an A, it takes you to D. If you move the C sharp to a C, it takes you to F. If you move the E to an E flat, it takes you to A flat. And if you move the G to an F sharp, it takes you to B.
It's not exactly what I do today. For instance, he says if you take the C sharp diminished chord, and maybe you change that B flat to an A, you end up with an A7 chord that could take you to D major. It's almost what I do in my example, in my exercise, but instead, it takes you to D minor. So changing the B flat to an A, in your mind, even though you don't have to. It takes you to D minor. I think this chord takes you to D minor just fine. If you'd like to explore more about the vehicles that diminished chords are, I recommend that you check out my friend Jake's channel, Signals Music. These are a couple of my favorites. Jake does a great job explaining everything, and you should subscribe to him if you don't already. Come on over to the keyboard and I'll show you up close the exercise and how you should go about fingering these different chord voicings. For the most part, when you start, you're going to have the 1 and 5 and the 1 and 3. Then you'll raise your thumb twice as you go from C augmented to C6. You can call this C6 or you can call it A minor in first inversion. You want to hang on to your thumb while your right hand plays this melody. Then I would do 2 and 4 here. You could stick with 1 and 5 here, or 1 and 4 if that's more comfortable and helps you to reach down here. I would do maybe 2 and 3 and then 1 and 3. It'll be different for everybody, depending on what's comfortable for you. But if you can, play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in every example of this right hand. It gets pretty tricky, especially say in the key of D flat. If you have a bad habit of starting this with your second finger, you'll run out of room. You would have run out of room before too, but for some reason, it feels better to start this line on your second finger than it does your thumb, but use your thumb for me. It'll help you not run out of room. Then you have 3, 4, and 5. Here's another in A flat major. And you'll notice that this exercise just follows the circle of fifths. So if you've played 1 in A flat, the next place you're going to be is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the key of E flat. And also, once you get through all 12 keys, I've inverted it so that your right hand gets a chance to play these chord voicings in the opposite inversion. So instead of starting with the 1 on the bottom, the 3 on the top, we flip it and put the 3 on the bottom and the 1 on the top. And what it does is creates just a slightly different melody that takes you through every key again, but in the inverted position. Again. When I was writing it, I heard this one. Then I heard it doing this. For some reason that kind of came to mind, and it does make it feel a little bit more finished, but I didn't want to give you a 8-bar long exercise. I think 4 bars is a good concise amount. And you can get these kind of chord voicings into your fingers so that when you see them on a lead sheet, you don't think, B flat diminished, what is it? It's this. Your fingers might actually go to one of these voicings and spread it out really nicely, which will have a much more pleasing sound to your audience than just stacking them up. Plus, it won't sound like somebody's about to get murdered. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you have fun learning more about diminished and augmented chords with this exercise. I'll see you next time on Aimee Nolte Music.